I'm John Street, and you're watching PAX 8 Live.
Welcome to Academy Live.
Welcome to Technically Unraveled.
Welcome to the game on PAX 8 Live.
This is James Davis from the PAX 8 Academy again. Academy Live is really designed to empower MSPs to learn and grow the way that best suits them.
How to grow and mature your business on demand, instructor-led, peer and coaching.
We talk about all the cybersecurity shenanigans you need to be aware of.
That's when you really need to know, are they security conscious?
Technology businesses and
inspiring our audience to work on their business.
Understanding what made businesses tick.
I'm really excited to talk about this course.
How can we make an MSP more efficient and make them better at serving their clients?
How do we not screw it up? We do the basics well.
PAX 8 is laser focused on helping our partners grow, get efficient, and reduce risk.
Ask yourself, what are you going to do differently tomorrow to grow your business?
We look forward to seeing you next time. We'll see you then.
Are you guys excited? Are you ready to start Beyond?
Who's coming to Beyond 24? You want a little more?
I think folks are really excited about what they can do with their customers and how they can help grow their business.
It's a massive opportunity for all of you.
Cheers to the channel community.
What's up, everyone? Happy Friday. Welcome to the game. I've attention.
Yeah. We're currently reading like 15 volumes of War and Peace here in this classroom. No, it's great to be here, Dom. Let's go ahead and jump right into the news. Today. So yeah, we're here in a school. We just got done speaking at Jeffco Public Schools, teaching some of their kids at their Jeff Con conference. It's really cool because I never had anything like this as a kid. Like there was never a cybersecurity conference and an IT conference in general at my school. They had recruiters from the military and Lockheed Martin and all kinds of stuff. And it was just a really cool experience. So Dom and I thought it would be appropriate to teach children how to hack. And so we did that first. But let's get right into the news. Go ahead and bring it up, and then we'll have an awesome guest with us here today. A pretty riveting conversation. All right, so Schneider Electric confirmed ransomware attack on their sustainability division, right? French multinational company, like all the battery people, right? APC, Schneider Electric, said that they actually had a breach, right? They confirmed an incident at this point on a statement that that they had their systems down in essence, right? And that they were limited though in its response. But the thing that came up, and we won't spend so much time on this, is Cactus ransomware raising their hand, right? And so we're starting to see other ransomware gangs play out and come into play. They go on to say and talk about how it was contained and how the incident they allowed them to reinforce and or existing security measures and sustainability business. From a recovery standpoint, sustainability business perform remediation steps to ensure that business platforms. I guess my point is you think about what would be the impact, and we can come back to this stuff, but what would be the impact of an APC manufacturer having their intellectual property stolen when it goes on this thing? Can you imagine what you could do by simultaneously turning off all APCs or using them as a weaponized host?
Well, Schneider's not. They're huge. They build.
It's true.
I can imagine.
Yeah, what's great is I can see Jason's face back there, but did you say, I'm sorry, from the production team, are you guys not hearing us? Do you have an audio problems, you said? All right, we'll do it. Okay, we can grab our mics. We'll try not to be too loud for you. Like I said, we're in detention, so we're just kind of making do with what we got. Schneider Electric being compromised, and really the source code compromisation maybe Jason's the person to ask about this, what he would do as a threat actor with access to source code injection. And imagine if you could have battery backups down, which are connected. They're the primary power delivery source, right? So if you have infrastructure, you usually don't have another one going straight into the wall,
right?
Typically, right? And so you could imagine what kind of chaos you could create.
Although when I was new at used to with the dual power supply,
you put one into just a power strip,
which I was told was a really stupid idea.
Okay,
I didn't know better, but it would have been redundant. So I stand by my.
Dom wins. Actually, I think we're going to go ahead and give this point to Dom. Yeah, let's bring up the next news article, if you will, please. And this one gets into midnight Blizzard hackers. HPE or HP Enterprise, Microsoft midnight Blizzard hackers lurked in systems for months, right? So HP and Microsoft both reported that cyber attackers and those two attackers had lurked for several months. And it goes back to this understanding of saying, when you start seeing nation state players involved and you start seeing people of the large companies, do we start seeing timelines increase for reconnaissance, right? I mean, if you remember over the last 2 years, Dom, we've talked about how like dwell time has dropped, right? Dwell time used to be 6 months and then it dropped into 3 months and even shorter. And, for anybody that doesn't
better detection, right?
Sure. That's the thought, at least. Yeah.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
Right. So, in the Microsoft case, the attack appeared to be motivated by spying, right? Which is just they're basically saying, the nation state aspect, Cozy Bear, APT91. But ultimately, just know that Microsoft and the Blizzard hack, they were there a long time, right? That began in November of 2023 and continued on forward. So, just understand that threat actors, when it comes to these larger players like HP, what kind of juicy target is HP Enterprise? What kind of juicy target would Microsoft be in that regard? Any thoughts on this, Dom?
When this incident first started reporting, it started to come out that this was done through various different lab environments, Microsoft non-product environments, and they pivoted to gather production information. And I wasn't able to read into whether that was like API-based permissions that have been given or how they actually pivoted, but it does tell a story of, we have a lot of labs. We work in a lot of labs, and they're all MFA enabled. They're all held to nearly the same standard that prod is for this very reason. We might accidentally create a bridge between non-prod and prod. So from that perspective, if that is indeed what happened here, this is a good call out for you're messing around with tech. It still needs to be secured.
Yeah, it actually comes to mind. I was talking to a company that they're wanting to make spin up demo resources for companies, right? They do automated AWS and infrastructure creation so that I could demo Sentinel-1, right? They give me a victim machine, they give me all those things, and they demo it. And it was interesting because I asked the CEO of this company, I said, what do you have in place to stop me as a threat actor from using your platform to do my threat actor-y things?
Great question.
To test Sentinel-1, to maybe even drop attacks from that place. And what was so funny is they looked at me and they're like, as if nobody had suggested somebody bad might do something bad with that, right? And it was interesting.
Pursuit of money, it can get you sometimes.
Yep. And then this last one I wanted to get on everybody's radar is that Microsoft Teams external access abuses to spread Darkgate malware. And what they're talking about is that AT&T experts came out and said, hey, we have a concerning trend in Microsoft Teams that people are distributing malware, right? That they're using that and say, hey, traditional phishing via email. And you and I have talked about this for years, that the next surface area would be very Teams-centric.
Yep.
And so in my mind, this isn't something that surprises me, but it does actually make sense in the sense that people are setting up Teams by default to allow a lot of external access, to allow guest access, to do things like that let me come in from some assumed identity that I have control over, and then sign in and do things inside your tenant and interact with your users. And so some of the takeaways that I'd say on this is the malware is starting to be distributed for years. I mean, this was 2017, right, for Darkgate malware.
Right.
But what we're seeing is a more unique way of delivering it via Teams. It doesn't go through a spam filter. Right. I'm not checking that in some common way through MX handlers, right, and some border gateway solution.
Now, though, unfortunately, you need business preview.
Yeah.
But if you have Defender for Office, they've added that remediation in for Teams links, both in between internal users and external to internal.
Yeah.
I noticed this when I was on a meeting with Nathan Taylor. And, we didn't use the chat, but I closed it, and there's this big yellow triangle in Teams, and I was kind of like, what?
Okay.
But it was a warning. It's like, hey, this is an external chat. It's not your corporate chat. You need to click through and accept that something here might not. So it was kind of like a Chrome-esque sort of warning of, hey, this is weird.
Yeah.
So they are working on it, making progress, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are seeing that change over time. But for the point that I want you to take away from this is chat infrastructure can also be your attack surface as well, right? Discord and all of those places. And they typically will be
especially.
Oh, Discord especially. Yeah. Not to pick on you, Discord. We love you. But yeah, ultimately, it's not surprising to me, but this is a takeaway. Shut down and lock down your teams. Make decisions on who you can communicate with. Make decisions on what can be done. Can I share? Can I chat? Can I share files? Can I download? Can I stay in the meeting after I leave? Start setting those type of parameters and try to reduce that risk in general. So
that's how we are at PAX 8. Each individual partner we may want to collaborate with has to get approved. And it seems like the biggest company wins.
Right.
I'm in the PAX 8 tenant for everyone I talk to, except for Microsoft. They're a little bit bigger. But we're in those spaces and everyone's approved and we have agreements with each other on how we're going to handle that cross collaboration. So it's really important to consider that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we kind of just got through the news really quickly, and it might be because I'm super excited about this conversation. What I don't know is if our infrastructure is holding out there. So if you're out there in the chat, let us know if we're great. Interact with the show. Oh, we got lots of people. They aren't in an ideal IV situation. True story. Also keeps going in and out. Now we're in Teams.
I think we have the camera on this. We need to move the video.
Yeah, we could do some on-the-fly adaptations if we'd like. If you don't mind, y'all, let me know just from a general theory. Do we need to make some changes, or are we doing okay enough to continue the conversation from the production team? Okay, I'll take it. We're all right enough. Or you're not hearing me. Okay, let's cut over to Jason Slade, or to Robin Harris. Let's hear some brilliant words from Robin, and we'll do a little bit of changes on the background and get us a little better.
So let's talk about configuration management. And it's very timely because ISO 27001-2022 has added a configuration management control where you have to document, implement, monitor, and review. And you may be doing some of this, but if you're going for your ISO certification and you're upgrading and going into that 2022 version, you're going to see the auditors are going to pull that thread and they're going to expect a higher level of security around how we're managing configurations. And I want to explain to you that one and done, that's never security. Security is never one and done. You set these standards, you're like, oh, you have to have A, B, C. And when you build it out, you build it out with A, B, C, right? And somebody goes and changes. It could be accidentally, they may have done it to make an upgrade or something, and they removed C. And C was really critical to keeping your system safe. Now you only got A and B, and you don't have anything in place to monitor to make sure A, B, and C are always operational. So you're going to see more controls coming in through ISO that talks about continuous monitoring and monitoring the effect of your tools. And if you're a small organization and you have a small technology stack and footprint, you might can do this manually. But if you're not, you're gonna have a problem. You're going to need tools that are going to actually continuously monitor your environment. Oh yeah, those S3 buckets in Amazon are encrypted, right? What if somebody accidentally turns it off? These S3 buckets are private. What if somebody goes in there and accidentally makes them public? So you got to look for all of those types of situations where your configurations are part of your security controls. And if you lose any of that integrity in your configuration, you could be introducing a vulnerability into your environment. So that is why you're going to see this increase in demanding that we pay more attention to that. And the more we outsource to the cloud, people think, oh, the cloud is so safe, it's so safe. Amazon, Azure, Google, they are very clear about where their responsibilities stop and where yours start. And guess what? If you don't architect your configurations to be secure, something happens, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they're going to be like, we're so sorry, but that's not our problem. So the responsibility for a lot of the environments rest on how we configure them, how we monitor them, and how we review them. ISO says it's time to do a better job in that space, and we're going to require that as part of your certification. But you don't have to wait for ISO to demand this. You don't have to wait for your clients to demand it. You don't have to wait for anybody to demand it. It's just part of leveling up. It's time for us to really take responsibility and not wait for somebody to tell us we have to do it. But if we need to wait, that's okay. ISO 27000 2022, configuration management, they're telling us.
I will. Okay, so people make mistakes. I don't know if you guys know this or not.
Occasionally.
But people can click the wrong button. And I was talking to a little tiny mic way over there instead of this mic right here. So I hope this is better for everybody. Is that really whispery? Okay. All right, so we've definitely fixed it. I hope you guys are great. Please comment there. I'm sorry for that, y'all. We don't want to waste your time and not give good products. So that's on us. We apologize. We'll get it fixed. But I'm super excited. And I think we have quite a bit of time. So I want to do a couple things to introduce this next guest because he's been on before. He's our loving curmudgeon, and it's going to be a great conversation. But let's do a little throwback to something Jason hasn't seen yet of the beard shave from last year when the two of us fell victim to raising $250,000 for charity.
I'll say bye-bye to your daddy's beard one last time.
You know, we've got waivers for kids on our show. So tell me what you think about this right now. Help me out.
I don't like it.
You like it?
I don't.
I must have misunderstood. I think you said you love the fact that your dad's losing his beard, yeah? But he's a pretty cool dude, huh? What about you? How you think about it?
He's my favorite dad.
He's your favorite dad? That's good. That's a good thing, empirically. Getting ready for the big reveal. Come on, hit him up. Yeah, that was wild, man.
A lot of neck hair.
Jason said yes so fast when I asked him that, right? Because I came out and said, "Hey, we're doing this. I want you to shave your beard there, Slagle," and he jumped in, said, "Yeah, absolutely," right? So, why are we here today? Why do we want Jason Slagle on this conversation? And I think it's going to be a fun one because it was something that really kind of hit me weird and made me frustrated as well in what I do. But it brought up some really good points to talk about. And so let's go ahead and roll the clip that started this all of Jason's saying how frustrated he was.
There's a post by somebody that I know and I've known in the channel for a long time that has me irked, and I'm going to call it out. And the call out is essentially, I'm not going to link it. I'm not going to tell who it is because I don't want to drive any more traffic to it because, again, it irks me. The call out was asking or calling out creators, content creators like myself. And the direct question was, are we ignoring small business in favor of being an echo chamber and being influencers? Yeah, I'm a little called out by this and a little bit frustrated. And so I'll explain why here in a second.
All right, we are back. Let's bring on Jason Slagle. We've got like 30 more minutes in detention before we can go. So we're going to have a good time chatting about
long
this.
Interview.
What's up, Slagle?
What's up? How you doing? Right,
man, they did some cool graphics work. They split me and Dom up, put you in the middle. I don't even see you, but I know you're there. No, it's great to have you here, brother. So it's been like 2 weeks since you made that post, right? Or a week and a half or so since you made that post. How do you feel about it now? Anything new stuck out? And if not, then just restate the problem. Let's get started on this conversation.
No, I don't honestly feel a lot different, right? Like the post originally was a vendor in our space complaining about cybersecurity influencers, right? Like essentially being an echo chamber, and it really frustrated me because on one hand he's not wrong, right? Like, but on the other hand, I think
Sure.
that's a necessity, and I wanted to kind of lean into why I think that is, and I was frustrated because I don't know as a vendor that you get to call that out, right? It's like, I have no skin in this game. I'm an MSP, right? I have no skin in this game, and I 100% acknowledge the fact that most of my LinkedIn content is not targeting small business, right? Because I think that's ineffective. And I talk about it in the post why I think it's ineffective, and I talk about what I think we actually need to do to make the world different here. And it kind of stirred up a little hornet's nest because it actually got quite a lot of engagement on
got a little fiery. Yeah.
And yeah, got the original poster did reach out to me privately, and he did apologize. So there is that. So we'll talk about it, I guess.
But the core problem that was premised in this was that SMBs need to be educated, and that SMBs need to be taught so that they can move forward with cybersecurity, and that we often find ourselves in an echo chamber. And what is an echo chamber, right? Let's tackle that first. So, who wants to tackle what's an echo chamber? What does that term mean?
I mean, it's like if you surround yourself with people that all have your same opinion, right? Yeah. Which in cybersecurity we could easily form a huge room, right?
Sure.
And we suddenly all agree with one another. That's an echo chamber, right? I say something, you agree with it, Jason agrees with it, and there's no dissenting opinion, right?
Yes.
I would also add.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would also add that it's not just the we all say the same thing, but it's also we're all aware of the same things. Yeah. We have a certain presence and understanding of what's around us. Like it came to me today, we were talking about Jen Easterly, and Jen Easterly was swatted a few weeks ago, right? Or not even a week ago, it was 3 or 4 days ago. Yeah. And I'm like, Jen Easterly, and we hear, who's Jen Easterly? And I'm like, shocked that someone would know that. Yeah. And yet, in our world, it's perfectly acceptable and normal to know exactly who the director of CISA is, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. But for a person, a lay person teaching a class in school, it's not as much. And another great example is like the things and practices we want. Dom and I did a live hacking demonstration of stealing a session token today, and there was a IT administrator speaker here coming to speak about IT careers, and I said a couple of things that should be done, and he's like, I have to use different passwords, but I have to, and I'm not trying to be pejorative or negative, but the point is that in an echo chamber, in cyber specifically, it feels like we all think everybody knows this, right? And we have that as well. Jason, anything else you'd add to what is an echo chamber before we kind of kick into what the rest of this?
Yeah, I mean, kind of to go on what I said was driving at earlier, I feel like social media makes echo chambers because the algorithms like will put you in a position where you get content from people you interact with. And who do you interact with? You interact with people that agree with you, right? You tend to not interact as much with people that don't agree with you, unless you're me, in which case you very much interact with people that don't agree with you because you're like
almost chase them out, it seems.
Yeah. Some of that's not accidental, right? It's like I very much try to curate my social media feeds to be a little bit less of an echo chamber than I think that the average is. Like I don't tend to try to unfollow or unfriend people that have dissenting views just because I'm tired of seeing them, because that's how you build one, right? And I think it is a huge problem because it makes you don't realize, to your point earlier, right? Like Jen Easterly is awesome, right? But like the average person doesn't know who she is, and I don't know that they need to, right? And I think that comes down to the core point.
That's the big point, right? Yeah. Just tackle it then, Jason. Let's kick into that next piece. When you talk about, let's before. So the problem is the asserted problem. So we know echo chamber, that we're influencers in an echo chamber. But the other stated problem I actually 100% agree with, which is SMBs in general are not aware of where they need to go from a cybersecurity perspective. Right. But that doesn't mean that I agree they have to be. And I think there's an interesting piece there that is part of this problem of what we deal with SMBs. And Jason, if you want to dig into that, this is what I think the best comment I saw on your post was someone referencing thermonuclear engineering. You want to kind of bring that one up there, Slagle?
Yeah, that was great. I mean, the comment was basically like how silly it is in literally any other industry to assume that you would speak directly to your customers, right? Like, so he referenced thermonuclear engineering, he referenced insulation, right? Like you wouldn't expect your insulation salesman to be talking to homeowners specifically about the ins and outs of R values and in the pros and cons of different types of backings, right? Because the homeowner doesn't care. What they care about is that their house stays warmer, right? So like the things they need to understand as part of this is that like big R value good, small value bad, and that is like the extent of what you need to understand about it insulation, right? So I think it's on us as a community to understand that small business, they need to understand cybersecurity essentials, right? Like, yes, you do have to use separate passwords for everything. Yes, where possible, SSO is probably safer. You should likely use a password manager, right? All of those basic cyber hygiene, right? But they don't necessarily need to understand the ins and outs of what it takes to get HIPAA compliant or SOC compliant, right? They're almost certainly better off outsourcing that knowledge to an expert, right? So they need to know enough to not do dumb things, and they need to know enough to choose a partner that will help them through it, and that is the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you nailed it, right? Like it'd be like saying, okay, if I as a homeowner was going to insulate my garage, let's just say maybe I'm doing that. But if I was going to insulate my garage, now there's an argument for me doing it myself. I'm going to need to go figure out the R values. I've got to realize when I use this backing against a non-porous surface versus this backing against a porous surface. And those things come into play. And I get a choice there, right? As that homeowner, I have one choice to make. I can either go learn all these things and attempt to be the best guy at insulation when I know there's like 96 companies that do it better than me right around the corner, or I can pay one of those 96 companies. And so let's take that allegory back to, small business and cybersecurity. Jason, you kind of postured this on your post of, MSPs trying to echo chamber and escape their echo chamber into the SMB and educate. Is the intent to educate them to do it themselves, or is the intent to educate them that you're trustworthy and you're the right partner? Right. And I think that's kind of the difference in what you put out there. When it comes to, go ahead, Jason.
No, I think that, there's some benefit probably to establishing yourself as a thought leader, right? Like, but I make zero attempts to posture my content to small businesses. I don't, other than the fact that I am a small business, right? We're 25 and a half employees right now, right? I have one part-time employee and the 25 full-time employees. Other than the fact that I am a small business, the small business challenges for different lines of business are completely different than mine, right? So the thoughts that I could understand all of them, it's unfounded. Of course, I don't understand all of them. So I make no attempt to, and I make no attempt to talk to them in a language other than a basic business language, like of, hey, there's a lot of risk here. You can probably understand. I make no attempt to frame that in a way that is digestible for them. Instead, I talk to my peers and I attempt to build enough credibility that when somebody comes across us, they're like, okay, well, he actually seems to know what he's talking about. Maybe we should use them. Right? I don't think it's feasible for the average, I'm going to say less than 200 employee company these days to go it alone. I just don't think that that's the right move in most cases. They might be able to do fine until boom happens, but once boom happens, they're done. Right? They are 100% not qualified to deal with anything that happens after an incident or a breach happens, and luring them into this false sense of security by the fact that you've taught them enough will fall apart the second they have an incident because they will do all of the wrong things.
Yeah. Well, and you and I did a talk about this, right? So we spoke at GERCON last year, and it was in fact it was just the two of us, right? So we spoke at GERCON on a title called "MSPs Suck, but the world without them is worse." And some of these same thoughts have shown up in that space, right? The small to mid-sized business that hired some cousin of the aunt that they knew that had an inkling for computers, and then they had 900 Raspberry Pis in their office that hadn't been updated since Jesus was born, right? And so you get into this situation where you've got somebody trying to do it themselves, and we made a strong argument for partnering, right? We made a strong argument for partnering. One of the things that I did want to tackle in this conversation is Jason, you said to me, Matt, my focus and target audience for the most part has been in LinkedIn, really educating other peers, holding vendors to be accountable, right? Driving a lot of those things. That's a lot of what your mission is. How do you think an SMB and an MSP, and I'm not in your shoes anymore, Jason, so I'm going to leave this to you. How can you use it for both? Can you use it for both? Can you take what's seemingly an echo chamber of me, you, Wayne Selk, Dom Kirby, and hundreds of other people, and also use it for the other purpose? Or is there a challenge with that? Like, what are your thoughts on that for giving other MSPs advice?
I think you can to a limited extent. I think the problem you run into there is that an implied level of base knowledge, right? And you very quickly exceed the base knowledge that that small business has. So what happens is, it's really hard to have conversations that have actual meat to them, that aren't very, very high level, pie in the sky, fluffy stuff. Because at some point or another, if I'm talking to an MSP or I'm talking to a technology provider or technology person or an in-house IT person, whatever the case is, we just don't speak the same language, right? Like I can't talk to them about TLS, or I can't talk to them about conditional access policies. I can't talk to them. Maybe multi-factor is in the lexicon enough now that we can at least have that conversation. But like that's as deep as you can go. And even that in many cases, I find most small business owners, they don't understand MFA. They find it to be a pain in the butt. They don't want to do it, right? So I will have a conversation with them in their terms as to why that is a good idea, right? But like that's as deep as you can go, and that doesn't echo and it doesn't resonate well with the more technical and the more advanced users. So yes, I believe you can take a set of talking points and you can reframe them to both audiences, but I'm not sure you can take the same talk and have it resonate with both.
Yeah, it's fair.
Well, it's I think I made it about 9 days into 2024 before I had to have a discussion with a partner, with an MSP, about whether or not MFA was important. So we still have work to do. I'm just
and that's the damn point, Dom.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what do you focus on in your social media?
MSPs, right? And the channel. Now, I think where you and I work professionally, that's a given, right?
Sure.
But it's also that's our objective. Like that's where we want to be. That's our passion. That's our core values. However, I've seen immense value in establishing myself as someone who can have those conversations at the different levels they need to be had. Like Jason, the fact that you can have a different conversation with a customer or prospect versus another MSP or your peers is in and of itself a marketable thing, right? You have the dynamic personality to be able to go do that and know who you're talking to and address the right issues. I think that in and of itself is a marketable skill.
Yeah. The other thing I think we're seeing play out too in this conversation is, why is there an echo chamber? Why do we have a group of us, Jason, that you and I talk to probably once a week, if not more frequent, depending on the party, right? And certainly on a constant basis in social media. But why do we focus internally? Why do we focus with these people in that space? And I have an answer for it, but I'd love to hear yours.
I have the altruistic reason and the selfish reason. So the altruistic reason.
Okay, fair. I'll hear the one.
Well, I'll start with the altruistic reason, right? Like I legitimately want the world to be better and I want companies to improve, right? And I want MSPs to level up and get there. The selfish reason is if they don't, then the government's going to come in and regulate us out of existence. And that's not going to be good for anyone. Right. So yeah, we have this echo chamber, right? But it's not a club. It's not like a secret club where you have to be invited. Like, come to our echo chamber. We have cookies. We almost certainly have cookies at most events. I have bourbon, like even better than cookies, right? So come hang out and learn some things and get better and make the entire industry better. And that is how you make small business safer, right? Like
right.
You can't do it one at a time. You have to use a force multiplier, and MSPs are that force multiplier.
That's exactly it. You stole my answer. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. But that's exactly it, right? I don't think that if I wanted to chase down every small business and make them use MFA, I could ever win that battle. I could never do it. I don't think I could teach every small business the ways they handled their credentials and the ways they manage things, and that SSO is good and those things. But I can shift the industry. Right. And I can change the vendors. I can change the products. I can drive things to change. And so can you, right, Jason? You changed things before I ever did. And I'll think back, and let's not name the vendor, but if you go back to the Brit and Fox days, right, and back those times, vendors were very apt to say, "Oh, pay no attention to this security vulnerability. Have a nice day."
Right.
And I think that the way I met you was through that echo chamber, was through this need to say it has to be better, right? And that's where I think this is coming from. So I think the solve, Dom, and I'd like your thoughts on this. I think the solve is if we can get enough mass of us saying this is what we need, this is the right way we need to go, we can change this enough that the end consumers aren't part of having to solve that necessarily, right?
We don't want the end consumers to be a part of having to solve that. Like, we're here to serve those consumers, right? But the other piece on that is that the larger this group gets, right, or set of groups, or there's more
we have
than
the
one
cookies
echo
and the
chamber,
bourbon,
by
so
the
it's
way.
probably going to be
going to be
us,
ours. But the more we do on our own as a team to influence change, right, or bring our own change, or bring our own standards, and build our own regulation, right? We're having a lot of SRG type conversations. And that's a really, really powerful thing, even if it's in an echo chamber, which I disagree with labeling it an echo chamber in the first place. I think it's a collective group of people.
That is the end of our sessions. Are you ready for some prizes?
I am.
Great.
I don't know about y'all.
Prizes. I need some prizes.
We're going to have end of the day
There might be cookies. Probably not.
I doubt cookies. Yeah,
This is
mostly
amazing.
raspberry pies and flippers. Yeah.
This is indeed a high
Really
school.
attention?
Yeah. Well, we're almost done with the detention. Like I said, we've got like 20-something
yeah.
minutes. We're done. And we get to wrap up. We still got to scrape some gum from those 3 desks over there, but after that, we're in good shape. Yeah, sorry for the interruptions. Slagle, one of the things that you've seen change, right? And I think one of the things about this, I don't want to call it an echo chamber. I would say community. I think the piece we speak towards is most of the time when I'm posting, I'm posted to my community, right? And we've seen change. We've seen this happen. And I think what's the other thing I'd really like to open up a tackle of a conversation on is even in the echo chamber, those people themselves typically are still thinking about how they help their SMB, right? What I mean by that
100%.
is in an echo chamber, they're still saying, hey, let me see, how do I teach my MSPs to be, or my SMBs to be better? How do I get them to do MFA? How do I get them to do strong off? How can I move my vendors to be better? How do I get them? There's still a gap though. Where's the one place none of them in the echo chamber typically focus? Anybody want to tackle that?
I mean,
they look down
in the mirror
and they look up.
They don't look
in the mirror.
They don't look at yeah.
That's exactly it. We talk about this, Slagle, but what are your thoughts on that? I mean, has the echo chamber even been effective in asking them to change yet as MSPs?
I mean, I think it has been, and I think you and I have evidence of that just based on our experience giving, essentially the How I Would Hack You talk over and over again and watching the group level up as we've done it, right? So I believe it's been effective. And I believe that, when you look at things like the cyber call, right, and you look at the average maturity of the MSP that's on or attending that call, their security maturity has gone up like significantly since it started, right? Like the question is, and I think the right question is not, are we speaking to an echo chamber? The actual question is, how do we bring more service providers into the echo chamber, right? Like, how do we talk to the wrong people? We're just not talking to enough people, right? So how do we amplify that to let others into our secret little cookie fort with bourbon, and they can up and get there. And I honestly think that the solution to that is bridging communities, right? Trying to involve people into communities, bringing the speaking that you do, that I do, that a lot of us do, and over time, people will see it and they will understand, and those things will make the world better for everybody. And hopefully, if we do it well enough, we will avoid regulation, or we will convince the regulators that we can be self-regulating, right? And they don't have to come in with heavy-handed edicts that are given to us by government agencies that are fed by the CISO of the Fortune 500s that don't understand that, their security budget is the entire revenue of a lot of these companies they're trying to serve. Right.
And they're not even that effective at it.
Yeah, no.
One of the things I wanted to bring in, Roddy Bergeron. If you don't know Roddy Bergeron, he's brilliant. He's a good friend of mine, and just a good dude, not a great school board member, but a great dude. But he said it's not an exclusionary practice to have a targeted audience if the goal is to educate or improve. You become an echo chamber when you, the person speaking or forming opinions, refuses to accept new input and seek only validation for your thoughts. And again, it just reminds me how much smarter Roddy is than me. I think he's even better looking. Like, I hate him. It's okay. I still like him. No, but really, I think that point is so salient in that when you are in our world, how many times have you been wrong, Jason? How many times have you been called back from your thoughts?
Today?
Yeah, fair.
I mean, right? Like this isn't knowledge it's a journey, right? It's never complete. And it's not necessarily even being wrong, right? It's like I make the best decision given the information that I have at that exact moment in time, right? And tomorrow I might get better information and I might understand it better. And that doesn't mean that I've made a mistake or that I've done it wrong. It just means that I now understand it better and I can make a better choice, and that choice may be different. I think that you become an echo chamber and it falls apart when you stop that journey of learning, right? When you assume that you've learned it all and that you've, beat the end of the level and now you can just watch the end credits roll, right? Like, I think that you constantly have to be evolving, you constantly have to be improving, and you constantly have to be leveling up. And, my goal is with my echo chamber that I 100% I'm targeting MSPs with my talk. It is to engage in those conversations. We can all level each other up, because every time I have one of those conversations with you, with Don, with so many others in our industry that are absolute legends, I learn a ton.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. A guy out there, and I love him to death, his name's Benno van Weyenberg, and he's an engineer in Belgium. And he gave me the insult that has been the best compliment I've ever had in my life. He said, "Matt, I get you." And he and I had a lot of friction, and he was a perfect as the enemy of good person. He always wanted it to be exactly right, and he was brilliant. That's why we hired him. He was amazing. But he said, "Matt, I get you." And he didn't mean it to be positive. He said, "You hold extremely loosely to passionate beliefs." And he meant it to say you change anytime you get new data and you're willing to change, and I took it as, yes, I will scream to the mountaintops what needs to change today. But if you give me new evidence, I'm willing to change what I believe and what I feel and how I think. And I think that's how you avoid being an echo chamber, is to exactly Roddy's point, like the willingness to understand when you need to change the way you think. And I'll ask you this simple thought experiment. Is there anybody out there that looks at their work from last year and doesn't go, "Jesus, that's trash"?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I look back at my engineering work 5 years before and go, "What is this idiot kid doing? Like, why would you multi-home a domain controller?" Like, I genuinely have lived that life. We've been down those paths. And so I think for anyone out there, it's about not having arrogance when you're doing it.
Right.
It's about asking and talking to genuinely learn and teach. And I also will take Wes Spencer's comment that he gave me one time. And I used to make a new slide deck every time I presented something. It would have all brand new, everything. I would put a lot of work and heart and effort into it. And he goes, "You're an idiot." And of course, Wes Spencer, if you know him, never said that. He said it much nicer than that. They said, "You're an idiot." He said, "If you give that speech 40 times, how much % of the MSPs do you think will have heard it?" And I was like, none, like 2%. Genuinely, there's so many. There's 30,000, 40,000 global MSPs out there now. And so I think the point is, I bring that up, is that we still have a long way to go. There's still a lot of education to be done. And I think even if that makes it a loud reverberation of things, I don't think it's an echo chamber that's only there doing no good. And I think, Jason, you said this well. We've been both privileged enough to see it in the speaking end, and we've also been privileged enough to see it on the response end, right, in the ERT side of things. And I think there is no time to close up the cookie fort anytime soon. There's still plenty of people that are not where we need them to be, and I still have massive gaps.
Yeah.
Right. And Jason, what you mentioned that we didn't really get into is when we first did How I Would Hack You, one of the things we talked about with Tom Lawrence as well, he was also part of it, was MFA, strong MFA, those things. We asked that. How many of you in the audience are using strong MFA on your own systems today? And Jason, how many raised their hand that first time? It was like 2.
It was conditional access, and it was 3.
Yeah, that's right. It was conditional access at all, period.
Right.
Just CA.
Yeah.
At all. It was like 3. And yet we did it 6 months later, and it was half the room. And we did it a year later, and it was most of the room. And so we are seeing that grow, and I think we're going to see that grow in their client base too. But I think the other thing we haven't tackled about this is, how do we move the needle for the SMB besides what we've talked about? We've talked about making the market better. We've talked about making systems better and driving the industry. But how can we reach the SMB? What do you think that best path is? And Dom, how do we reach the SMB if you were an MSP today?
It's a byproduct of the work we're doing in this space, right? I think what I did to secure SMBs when I was running a shop would be dramatically different than what I would do if I went back and did it, right? And it's because of all the work I'm doing with you and with everyone else, with Jason in these groups, that I understand more and more every single day I'm in it, right? So I am able to build on that within the echo chamber or the cookie club or whatever we're going to call it.
The cookie
right?
fort.
Like it's the pace of education we can get with each other is ridiculous, right? And it's extremely powerful and frankly irreplaceable.
Yeah, and there's some portion of this, Jason, that the industry itself is securing, right? And some of the things we're driving are changing those practices. And that's been your world, man. I mean, you've been reverse engineering lab tech updates to look at Delta for, I don't know, probably 10 years now. Like, what do we think what are your thoughts on this? I mean, we could either go in one of two directions. Thoughts on how you reach the SMB, or thoughts on, do we still have work to do in changing the industry and the things that we have in our world?
I mean, again, I think they're connected, right? Because I think that the only way, I don't think you can reach the SMB directly, right? The channel exists because you can't, right? Like if
that's great call out.
If you could, if it was effective for any of these vendors to sell directly to the end users, do you think they'd deal with people like me? Of course they wouldn't, right? Like that.
No.
I mean, they would all dance in the corner about the fact that I'm not going to call them out on LinkedIn about dumb stuff they do anymore, right? Like, but it's not effective, right? It doesn't scale. So all of these things are about various levels of economy of scale. So the way I think we make the industry better and SMBs better as a result is we do need to make an effort to make our circle bigger, right? It's like we've given How I Would Hack You 3 times now, but it's 2 of the 3 times was, or 4 times now, and 3 of the 4 times are at one vendor's event, right? Like, how do we give that same talk elsewhere? How do we give the MSP suck talk to some other event where there's people in it that, so it is an 80% net new audience, right? Like it's, how do we generally increase the circle to make it more inclusive for more people to feel like they're welcome? And I think some of that is you got to be welcoming, you got to be warm. You can't be overtly mean to people when they do dumb things.
Did you just say that to yourself, Slagle? It felt like that was a little self-care. I just want you to know.
Because everyone does dumb things, right? Like I've done dumb things. We just have to make the world a better place, and we have to make our circle bigger.
Yeah, I think that's the point I'd leave to, right, Dom? Is like, we need to be more inclusive. It needs to be bigger. And I'm also going to say there's not a argument that you don't create a persona that speaks to your SMB, that helps you market, that helps get them on board, so that when they come on board, they can be taken care of.
But that's a different discipline, right?
Yes.
Marketing and what we're doing in this echo chamber. I'm going to call it Cookie Club.
I'm Cookie Club. I'm in on Cookie Club. We steal tech tokens, which are cookies. So we have cookies and bourbon.
Cookie Club. I like it. What we do in the Cookie Club versus what Jason needs to do as an MSP leader to sell to more customers or market to more customers are entirely different sets of activities. Like they may feel the same sometimes, but they are entirely different activities.
From the things Jason said, right? Yes. The challenges of communicating with someone that's not a practitioner in that regard. Yeah. The other thing that I'd say with this too is 3.3 in the National Cybersecurity Strategy from CISA says that we need to hold the stewards of our data accountable.
Yeah.
And one of the things that comes out of that in the last sentence in that article, or in that paragraph, is that oftentimes the costs and the negative consequences fall upon the least capable to protect themselves. And that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
That's where we are. The SMB is the least capable to protect themselves. They are far below the poverty line, the cybersecurity poverty line. And I think if I can teach people, and if Jason can teach people that serve those SMBs, to not give them the option to not have MFA,
to not do the things that allow them to be insecure, to just have standards.
Right.
And to Jason's point, the more we can get in the cookie club, and your point, to get more in the cookie club, more and more of us will adhere to a set of standards.
Yes.
More and more of us will say, no, I'm sorry, son. You're 16. You're not driving the Lambo with the stick shift and 570 horsepower. You're taking the Volvo, right? You can make decisions for those and be that good steward and help them understand those pieces of it. So I firmly believe, to the original point of the article, was well-spirited. And it's a friend of mine that wrote it. I think he was postulating a question that he genuinely asked. And I think that the problem is the solve isn't by making them smarter. I'm never going to teach an SMB CIA triad, how we're going to manage POLP, the methodologies, and how we're going to deal with the tactical aspects of security, the compliance or the governance. I just need them to trust me.
Look
that
at
we're
all the
going
data
there.
governance conversations that we have partners trying to have around
Copilot
and the
right
risk
now.
that comes
Yeah,
with it.
like, geez.
We're all lost, including me. Like we're all desperately trying to solve this challenge because we don't know how to talk to customers about this.
Yeah. And what's interesting is you're starting to see situations force that. Look at Copilot. Copilot has probably single-handedly in the last 2 weeks brought more conversations about data governance, data classification, data sorting that will wind up at the SMB.
Right.
Because these MSPs are saying, wait a minute, this might be bad that we've shared files for 42 years and had an S drive and John Street's salary is in an Excel document I can just ask Copilot about, right? And Slagle, I'd maybe take this last 2 minutes to ask you about that. What are your thoughts on this rapid exposure of AI to data sets and the impact of things like Copilot for an SMB? You got 2 minutes, plenty of time. You're good.
A lot to unpack in 2 minutes. I think it will be very important again to engage partners that understand it, right? Like even today, to give you the level of this stuff, we had today, I had a request from Matt, right, to hook up QuickBooks Online to MSP bots, right? And I'm like, I won't do that unless we have good role-based access control there, because what I don't want is I don't need somebody being able to see that data, right? Unless you want your subordinates stumbling into your payroll and telling you, like, asking you questions about what you make, we need to consider what data we put where, because if we don't have good controls around it, eventually it will come out, right? And so it's got to be on us.
You were too fast at answering that. We actually have a question from the audience. They want your top 3, Slagle, and I'm going to give it to them. So let's bring this comment up and let's see if you can give an answer to these top 3s here. Jason, with the state of cybersecurity changing so quickly, what are the top 3 things an MSP can do to future-proof their business? I mean, simple question, right? What are the top 3 things, if you wanted to name off your hand, an MSP could do to future-proof their business?
The first one is I'm going to take the easy way out and say, don't stop learning, right? Like you constantly
it's
need
fair.
to be
accurate.
Better.
Yeah.
In assuming the business model, even the business model that you're running today will be tenable tomorrow. We've seen us go from, I have Nigel's book right over there, right? We've seen us go from time and material to break fix to more of a slightly proactive to all you can eat. And now we're starting to see it pull back away from all you can eat a little bit, because cybersecurity is really expensive man-hour wise, and maybe you can't afford to do all you can eat for everybody. The second one would be secure your own house. I'm going to lean on, I think, Trustmark there, honestly, because if you aren't secure, you're not going to be around. You're not going to be future proof. And the third is,
and we just said none of the MSPs have looked inward. Right? We just said they look outward, up and down, right? Yeah. So number 3, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
Community. Find yourself some sort of community. It could be peer group. It could be
you might
one
say
of the
an echo
communities,
chamber,
like a geek or one of the other things. Yeah, find a cookie club. You can come hang out in ours. I mean, every once in a while, you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Jason, thank you for the top 3. I think you nailed them well, right? Keep learning, which means also keep changing, right? That's that number 2. And number 3 is this understanding of find a dang community. Why? Because it's hard what we do. We can't just ask them to do it. They don't care. They don't want to learn. They don't want to listen. And yet we're the ones watching them die for it. It sucks. It's not great. I don't love it. It's not my favorite thing. And for that reason, I'll stay in the cookie club and keep trying to educate those that are trying to move this world forward. Slagle, as always, I love you and your opinion. Thank you for joining us. And we'll have another echo chamber session next chance we get. Thank you. Dom, you want to close us out?
Thanks for joining us. This has been a great conversation, and I think we've said it on the echo chamber / cookie club.
It's Cookie
This
Club.
is a critical thing to our community. That in mind, that is our show for the week. The tension is over. We're gonna get out of here. Join us next week. We have Travis Woods joining us. We're going to talk about operational security, or OPSEC, and specifically with some of the cool places Travis has been traveling. We're going to tackle some of the interesting global travel challenges that come with OPSEC. So catch us next Friday, 2 p.m. Mountain Time. We'll see you then.